We have breaking news. This is a huge shocker. Rolex absolutely shocked the world with this announcement. Rolex is acquiring Bucherer. What does this mean for Rolex, Bucherer, as well as the industry at large? Let's talk about it. Let's just recap really quickly on what is going on. So Rolex has acquired Bucherer. Now, Bucherer, on many accounts, is the largest authorized dealer in the world of watches with over 100 points of sale. In the last few years, they also acquired Tourneau, which is another name many people in the United States is familiar with, for over $350 million. So they've already been scaling things out. They've been in relationship with Rolex for over 100 years, and by many accounts are the largest in the world of authorized dealers. Of those 100 locations, over half are going to be Rolex authorized dealers, and then just under half are going to be Tudor authorized dealers. Around 48 points of sale are going to carry Tudor for the Bucherer network. Now, since Rolex is a privately operated organization, we are not going to know the details of this, but one thing's for certain, it was a crazy strategic move by them, and I think very smart strategic move by them that I did not see coming. But in addition to that, it is also going to have implications of billions of dollars across the industry. So now the question is, why did Rolex decide to do this? I think there are three primary points I just want to touch on. This is, of course, my opinion, but I'd love to see your take down below. Now, number one, this obviously gives them more control over the points of sale across different parts of the world. Now, just addressing the scale internally, Rolex still has more than double, basically, the amount of points of sale within the Bucherer organization to add more doors if they wanted to. But I don't think that's the main reason why. What this also allows them to do is look at all those points of sale that they're currently in and see that now as more of the boutique style of experience where they can control those points of sale. You see with a lot of brands going in this boutique model, the relationship with the end customer and being able to scale from a retail environment is crucial for many of these brands, especially Rolex more than many because they do not have these digital points of sale and just the craziness that goes on with all of the authorized dealer channels. This is even more of a crucial pillar for them to figure out. So now getting into a further relationship with the supposed largest authorized dealer in the world, this is only going to give them more control over their points of sale as they go forward and having a partner as they continue forward in trying to scale this out even beyond this. Now, an indirect other reason why Rolex might have been interested in this is now that they control Bucherer, they also are a controller of being one of the #1 points of sale for many brands in the industry, including some of their competitors. Now, Rolex accounts for around 1/3 of the total Swiss watch turnover, which is a ridiculous number. So obviously this came into play when they were talking to Bucherer, who I would imagine has a sizable amount of their earnings that are going to come from Rolex sales. But this now puts increased pressure on other brands that very much were going to rely on this point of sale channel and going to have them reassess what they're going to do next. I'm sure they're not thrilled with the idea of Rolex now controlling this point of sale, which is, again, a huge player in the space. Rolex now owns the faucet in which many brands would go to get a drink from. Bucherer is also one of the largest players in the world for brands like Patek Philippe, Swatch Group brands like Omega, Richemont brands, LVMH, Breitling, and many others. So this is going to mix things up tremendously. And the other thing I'll mention here, beyond just being in these points of sale, it's also going to allow Rolex to probably further solidify their status within these points of sale. If you've ever been in a retail location, there is something that you'll see on the back wall that's going to represent the brand. This is known as a shop in shop. So it's basically the store within a store. What brands are fighting for constantly is how big is that back wall or their space that's dedicated to them. They will fight for every square inch and also will care about, do I get window access? They'll also care about if they're right next to another brand. Some brands they'll like to be next to more than others. All of this is about bolstering up their image. So suffice to say, Rolex and Tudor are going to benefit greatly from this because why wouldn't Rolex try to give prime real estate within these store environments to themselves and not other brands, especially competitors? So now 3 predictions and questions that I have following all this. First is going to be, how will other major retailers react? Most importantly, I think, is Watches of Switzerland. They're right there with Bucherer and being the largest in the world for both being a retailer of Rolex, but also just being one of the largest authorized dealers in the world. They're a publicly traded company in the UK. You also have Vempi as well out of Germany. This will, of course, bring a lot of conflict between these major players, but unquestionably, if you are now in a market, at least where it currently sits, with a Bucherer location, I would imagine that you are not going to get the same access as a Bucherer location when it comes to Rolex models. That is bad news for brands like Watches of Switzerland and Vempy, and then also major regional dealers as well. I think some of the secondary markets are not going to be as impacted because Rolex doesn't see as much of a benefit in creating these mono-brand boutiques in these type of markets. But if you're in a major A-tier market, this is where you're going to see this even more being played out, and Bucherer is going to have more of a stranglehold on this type of allocation. I think another thing that you probably are going to see is Rolex is going to, with partnership with Bucherer, apart from the allocation, are going to continue to scale both their presence in stores that already exist and then also future expansion in growing their presence across different markets. Having a retail partner that you can scale this with and having that know-how, although Rolex of course is very capable of doing this themselves, it's going to help really expedite this process even quicker. And I think the other and final consideration that needs to be brought up is, how are other brands going to react to this? I would imagine they're going to double down with different retailers that they have relationships with. Also, what they're going to probably do for those that can do it in those major markets, try to get into more boutiques. I think that is going to allow them to mitigate less of a reliance on some of these major retailer players and really trying to identify who are going to be their key partners and trying to pull away from Bucherer. Imagine some of these competitors of Rolex. They cannot be thrilled with Rolex now jumping in and being an owner of one of their prime points of sale. I don't see this being a big change for the end consumer as much. The only thing that I could see happening is when you're talking about in those A-tier markets in the short term, some of that allocation, you're probably going to see more people being directed to Bucherer. I could see less and less being maybe distributed to some of those other points of sale, but we don't know. We have no idea, and that is part of the mystique of Rolex. They are very Loctite in terms of how they go about making known what their business practices are, so we just have to wait and see. But unquestionably a big shocker in the industry. What's your take on this? Leave some comments down below. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Really would appreciate that. Definitely check out teddybaldisser.com, full authorized dealer of 30 brands. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.